Recording. We are recording. Okay. Okay, so in this session, we're going to be talking about some ways that you can use AI to support teaching and creating an equitable environment in your classes. And it would be really helpful if you download the slides because the slides have links to other resources that we'll be referring to. The URL is also now on the calendar invite. That was something someone suggested in the last session, so I added it for this one as well. So you could just go back to the calendar if that's open and click on it, or you could scan in the QR code, or you could type this in on your browser. There's actually 3 documents that it would be handy to have available on different tabs on your computer to jump back and forth as we go through this. And if you can't get to all of them now, you can always refer back to them later. But I'd also suggest, once you get these slides, that you open up ChatGPT or Claude, whichever one you're more comfortable with. If you haven't used either, ChatGPT is a simpler one to approach because it no longer requires a login, and nothing that we're doing would require a paid version on either of these. And to get to ChatGPT, just type chatgpt.com in your web browser, and it should open up an instance. It'll ask you if you want to log in, but you can choose the option of not logging in, which is right at the bottom of the list, at the bottom of the page. Does everyone have this now? Everyone have the slides? Okay, if anyone comes in late, Maggie, if you could just dump it in or put a note saying that the calendar invite has a link to it. So these are the slides here. It'll ask you if you want to add them to your Google Drive account. Say yes. You can always delete them later if you don't want to use them. And in there, you can actually have direct links to ChatGPT and Claude. If you haven't created an account with Claude, it would, well, you have to be able to use it. And the simplest way of doing it is to use your Google login. So just enter your Google information and it will create an account for you, and then just log in with Google. And then I'd also ask you to open the sample prompts file, which is something that we'll be using throughout the session. And again, keeping these open in different tabs will make it a little bit easier. And I am sharing the slides, right? Okay, because it's no longer showing that border. That's why I want to be sure. Okay. Now, there's a series, basically, this is a hands-on session, and we'd like you to try to do as many of these as you could. And one of them is, the first one, is an exercise where you can ask ChatGPT or Claude to create an inclusive syllabus for your course. And let's just try that. I'm going to hop out of here and go over to ChatGPT. And what you can do there is, going down here, I see we have some things in chat. You don't see it in the calendar invite. Could you stick that in? I probably have it on my computer without saving it. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I did paste it in, but I probably left it open when the last session ended. Okay, so let's say I want to create an inclusive syllabus here. Let me get rid of this, some overlays here on this screen. And let's say, suppose that you are an instructor telling ChatGPT what role it should play. Let's say for an introductory, let's say macroeconomics course. This is one I don't usually teach, course at a college level. Create an inclusive syllabus for this course. And just give it the information on your course. And here it tells you, currently this is section 800, gives you some information to fill out. It also gives you a textbook. Apparently it encourages McConnell, Stanley, and Brew, which is a textbook that dates back like 40 years or so. It's still out there apparently, but it's been around for a long time. At least since the 1970s, maybe early 80s. But you notice it gives you a pretty decent framework for an inclusive syllabus, where it includes an attendance policy, an exam policy, academic integrity policy, accessibility statement, diversity and inclusion statement, mental health statement, feedback and communication. Now you could ask it to do more if you don't like what it did. So let's suppose let's say you wanted to add an AI policy. And let's see what it does without further prompting. You probably wouldn't want to give it more information, but it's actually not a bad statement. This is similar to the types of things many people would use in an introductory class. Encouraging the use of it to review and clarify course concept, but any graded work must be the original work of students. That's probably a pretty common statement in introductory economic syllabus. In an economic syllabus. So was everyone able to try this and get something interesting back? Were there any surprises on any of it? Okay, in any case, we'll move on.
Mine is still generating.
Okay.
It's big.
What course did you generate it for? Okay.
Yep.
English composition courses probably have syllabi that are longer than economics ones, just given the selection in instructors.
And I formatted it all, or I told it that it was for a 3.5-week accelerated program because I'm thinking about EOP, which starts next month. So it's packing in all the things.
And you can always ask it to include more detail. And I noticed this one, I don't think included learning objectives, did it? Oh, yeah, it did. So there we go. So it includes pretty much all the components you'd expect, and it's at least a starting point. And if you don't like it, you could ask it to do something different. You could ask it to try again, or ask it for some clarification or more detail on whatever you're doing. The next thing I'd ask you to try is to take an existing syllabus you have, and if you have one handy, evaluate it for inclusivity. And if we go over to the sample prompt, which was linked to in the original document, here is what you can do is if you're using ChatGPT, if you wanted to input information in the free version, you have to copy and paste it in. If you are using Claude, you can attach documents directly, and it will read either Word document, it will read text, Word, PDF, or HTML documents pretty nicely. But with ChatGPT, you have to copy and paste. So I have one handy, and if you can access one of yours, I encourage you to try it. This is a syllabus I used last fall. So I'm going to do a Control A and then a Control C to copy it. And then I'm going to go over and enter in a prompt. Let's see. I am going to go back to the web here, and I'm going to go back to ChatGPT, and I'm going to ask it to, since I have things in my chat buffer, I'm not going to be able to just copy and paste both. I could have done it in the reverse order, but let's say evaluate, evaluate. Let me rephrase that. So let's try this. Rewrite the following syllabus for a college level introductory microeconomics course to be more inclusive. And then show changes in bold, in a bold font, in a boldface font. And then I'm just going to paste in the syllabus that I just copied. And now it's going to read it all in when I click this enter key. It's read it, and now it's generating a new prompt. Apparently, it replaced me as part of the, apparently to make a more inclusive syllabus, I have to be replaced by Jane Doe. But apparently Jane Doe will be in my office. But it actually, so far, hasn't made many changes. Or is it just rewrite? Let's see. So far, it hasn't illustrated any changes. This may be the copy as it's reading in. It may be repeating it. Continue generating. I had just tried this before and it worked a little bit differently. It did highlight some things in bold.
Yeah, this time it kept your semicolons.
It's kept my, yeah, before the main change it made, apparently it thought it was fairly inclusive to begin with. But it changed all the bulleted list so that it replaced the first letter with a capital letter, and changed it so that it was no longer one long sentence with bullet points. So it apparently changed its impression. Well, it's changed its grammatical preferences between all, say, 10 minutes ago and now. Did anyone try that and find anything interesting? Okay, well, if anyone has, again, has something they want to ask or want to say, just unmute your mic or type something in chat. And we'll continue. So the next thing I'd like you to try is to generate some examples, assignments, or role-playing scenarios that are inclusive of a diverse student population for your specific course. And so I'll go over here. And here I just provided a couple of variants. And here's one. Again, this is taken for an introductory microeconomics course. You can copy and paste this in and try your own prompts that are specific to your course. And this time I'll put it into Claude, and I'm just going to paste it in and send it. So here are just some possible essays. Actually, although this was just very vague, this would be something you might use on an introductory course. But actually, I believe, but if you can do it for specific learning objectives too, if you want to do something a little bit more precise. But these would be interesting end of the semester essays. What happened there? I think it looks like I didn't copy the whole thing. Let me try that one more time. Okay, here we go. I was pretty sure I had left something out. Let me try that again. And I'm going to put in the whole statement here. There we go, because it should have asked for specific topics. So if you want to give students some essay or some review questions, or even just a simple assignment, in this case, it deals with price ceilings and price floors. It gives you some examples of possible ones. And generally, they're reasonable, as long as you give it sufficient detail about the level of the course, the types of learning objectives in your course, or the content. It will generally give you something reasonable. And you don't have to use ones you don't like. You know, if you ask it to generate 10, you might use 5 of them or something similar. So it's a good way to generate some quick examples. I had another prompt in here where one of the things we talk about, at least in some section of the course, is behavioral economics a little bit. And in the topics we address, there's loss aversion, hyperbolic discounting, which is a fancy way of saying we prefer immediate gratification to things in the future, and sunk costs are some examples. So here, it's asking students to identify a scenario in terms of which of these specific concepts is used. I'll hop over to ChatGPT for this one, telling it first what the course is. And I want it to create examples that are inclusive of a diverse student population and providing 10 examples of scenarios that involve these specific issues. And ask it to not identify the issue in each scenario, and ask students to write a response that identifies the issue and ask them to suggest a solution that would result in improved efficiency. So when I do that, each time you do it, it will be a little bit different. So you could give them a little header saying that these are some issues that we've been discussing in this week's module, and identify which of these specific types of cognitive biases are at play and what strategies that you might use to be able to overcome these. I'm not going to look at each of these, but these are all types of examples that we tend to use in discussing these things. But it's a good way of just having students quickly assess this. You could also use this if you're using clickers in class to generate some clicker questions where you just put this up and ask students to vote on which type of cognitive bias or which aspect of behavioral economics is involved in these specific issues. And I was at if we look at the number 4, this was actually a situation that hit me kind of hard a few years ago. I was at a conference that happened to be located at Disney World. And I was with a historian there, and it was a really hot day. It was like about 98 degrees or so, and it was just kind of miserable. And I said, well, we've only been here for a little while. We paid this much for these tickets. We should probably get our money's worth. And the response was, that's a sunk cost. If we're not enjoying this, we should just leave. But in any case, these are types of things where people often make decisions that are not consistent with their long-run interests. Okay, but you can do this in any course with any type of situation or any type of scenario, and you can generate some fairly interesting examples where some of them will appeal to different students, for students with different socioeconomic backgrounds and so forth, and you can put more detail in the prompts to make sure that it's appropriate for all the students that you actually have in your classes. And moving on to the next slide. So these are just some examples, but here's a really good one for any type of modality. It's probably easiest to apply these in a face-to-face class, but you could ask an AI tool to recommend 10 active learning activities for your specific class, and to be sure to include the class size in the prompt and indicate the class level. So in this example, I have, here we go. Now this is a labor economics class where I'm providing some examples of this. One of the topics we talk about in labor economics is why jobs that have different non-wage characteristics pay different wages, associated with risk, job difficulty, educational requirements, and so forth. So I'm going to paste this in. I told that there's 40 students in the class and so forth. And let me paste that in here, and it will generate a different list each time you do this. And so here's some things to think about. So if you're not sure what you want to do in a given class, or you just want to mix things up a little bit, you could ask ChatGPT to recommend some new active learning activities. And you can assign these to groups or different groups and so forth and bring them all together. And one of the things I suggest, and this is, by the way, a prompt that has been found to work pretty well with GPT quite often, and that is just to tell it to try harder. And it devotes a little bit more processing power, and it will often come up with sometimes more interesting responses. Or you could just ask it for a different set of alternatives. And then if there's something in here that you really like, you can ask for more details. For example, you could ask for that. And let's say we want to do something. Let's go back to that response. So, let's see. Suppose we want to do provide more detail, let's say, provide more detailed instructions on a case study analysis relay. And it will provide more detailed instructions that you can use on how to organize it, for example. It's giving you some at least some very quick instructions on how you might implement this. And then I did something a little bit different here. Let me just paste this in. So I'm going to go back over here and more detailed student instructions. And let's just say on this activity, because it'll follow up, it's still part of the same prompt stream. And provide an instruction sheet for students using the TILT framework of Marianne Winkleman. So if you want to introduce TILT, you can have it generate all of this. And here's the instruction sheet in a TILT format, which identifies the, which identifies the, it didn't do it as well. Last time it actually put it in essentially a TILT framework where it lists the task, well, in any case, if it doesn't work, you can always try it again. Okay. And last night it worked beautifully. Oh, well. So now the last thing I have listed here is a whole series of things for you to try. And basically, this is providing students with, or encouraging your students to use AI to provide personalized support. No matter what we do in our classes, our students come in with very diverse backgrounds, and we can provide them with support on all the areas we think they need it, and the textbook may provide that too, and any supplemental materials. But students can often get hung up on some concepts that they're not quite getting. And these are all prompts on this screen and the next one that students can use to help create some personalized tutoring and personalized support. And what I'd like you to do is just try some of these and then report back to us on how it works. And here I don't think we have any sample prompts on these because I'd like you to try generating your own prompt. And many of you were in the last session that Stephanie just ran on creating your own prompt. So try it. Take one of these things for your own specific course and see what type of tutorial materials ChatGPT might be able to generate, or what might happen if you ask it to engage in a role-playing scenario or something similar. So going back to the slides here, basically the last two slides, try some of these things and let us know how they work. We'll give you a few minutes to try it. And if you didn't have a chance to try some of the earlier things, you can do that too. Okay, the question is, does ChatGPT keep the syllabi you enter? That's a good question. It probably does. Because again, anything you enter into it could become part of its training database. So you don't want to include anything that you don't want to be there. You certainly, if you're going to, for example, ask ChatGPT to summarize student responses or student essays, make sure you remove any identifying information from it. Maybe that's why my name was replaced by Jane Doe as the instructor for the syllabus. So I think the guidelines are, I think, will try to anonymize things like that, but there's no guarantee that it won't become part of the database in the future. That's an area where there's a lot of discussion in terms of what types of regulations might be needed to ensure privacy. But right now, we don't really have very much of that. No, students would not be able to search for. They probably wouldn't be able to find your course info by searching for that course because the training database probably includes thousands or tens of thousands of instances of History 100 syllabi online. And the way ChatGPT works is it's predictive text. It looks at the probability that certain words will be followed by others, and it uses a randomization procedure to generate that path of words that appear. But it will do that based on all of the syllabi that it receives and other information that's relevant to that. But they could probably find it unchecked, sorry.
What I like to do, Lynn, and actually what I did earlier in John's presentation was I asked it to create a syllabus and then I asked it to go through and make it more inclusive, and it compared and contrasted the two examples for me. So what I usually like to do is I'll have it generate something and then I will just compare what it generates to what I've already got. And I might ask it to, maybe rephrase different sections to sound a certain way, or I'll ask it to add information to different sections. I have yet to copy and paste my whole syllabus into it, but I usually just do like pieces so that it can kind of focus on whatever particular area and so that I can see more examples of things.
One of my favorites is the seventh one there. Have students conduct interviews with historical figures in your discipline about current policy issues or topics. And then you could have them submit those as an assignment if you want. But they could also ask them to explain things they don't understand. Oops. I was doing a search and apparently I was in the wrong window. We're using different microphones today than we did at another time. And I was looking at some information on how to wear them. Has anyone tried something and found something interesting?
Anyone more?
Okay. If you have a paid ChatGPT account, you could create your own GPTs that students could access through an API using a free account, and could ask, for example, you could create a GPT that reads a body of literature, that has read a body of literature and is trained on that, that students could query about something, which is basically similar to these last 2 points, where students can use ChatGPT or any other AI tool to summarize an article and to respond to questions about it or anything they don't understand. A common type of suggestion is to, if there's something that seems complex, to explain it in a way that would be accessible to a high school student or to a sixth grader or something similar. And it can often generate some nice summaries. Okay, what do you have?
So hang on, let me go back up to the top of my thing here. Okay, so I asked ChatGPT to create a personalized tutorial for a college level English composition class. This week, we have a quiz on writing clearly and concisely. Please give me one question at a time, let me respond, and then offer advice or feedback on what I got wrong. That's what I prompted. So, it was giving me a series of questions. I answered the first question the right way to see what it would respond. And then I answered the second question the wrong way to see just what it would say. So, the question that I answered wrong, the sentence that ChatGPT gave me was, the meeting will be held at 10 a.m. It will be in the conference room. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss the upcoming project. So what I said, to do it wrong on purpose to see what it would say, was the meeting will be held in the morning, the meeting will be in the conference room, we will discuss the upcoming project in the meeting. And ChatGPT said, your revised sentences are clear, but can be made more concise and combined into a single sentence. Here's a more concise version. The meeting to discuss the upcoming project will be held at 10 a.m. in the conference room. And then it gave me feedback. And told me that in my sentence or in my response, I mentioned the phrase "the meeting" multiple times, which I did. It told me that combining details into a single sentence makes it more concise and easier to read. And then it gave me some tips, and then it moved on to the next question after that. So the one I got right, it praised me and told me what I did well, and then the one that I messed up, it told me what I could do to fix my response. It's fun.
And so, yeah, having students use this to review their work for clarity, for possible improvements could be a really useful skill for students to develop moving forward. Now, Lynn mentioned creating a PowerPoint for fellow students based on a reading. Did you try this, and how did it work, Lynn? If you could unmute. Okay. I don't think the free version will create the actual slides, but it will create an outline basically, and it will tell you slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, and then have some bullet points to address on each. So it gives you a starting point for a PowerPoint. I'm not sure if the paid one will actually generate. I'm not sure, but it's quite possible though that the version of ChatGPT embedded in Edge might be able to create a PowerPoint, because Microsoft's version is becoming increasingly integrated into Office 365. I wasn't able to get the integration working on my Mac, but apparently it's easier on Windows machines, where assuming it's enabled for the institution, you can have writing assistants placed in all of the Office tools, in Word, in Excel, in Access, and in PowerPoint, which will do these types of things fairly nicely.
I'm checking on the slides that I asked it to try to generate a series of slides. Let's see. What?
Oh, it now is doing more.
It made me a PowerPoint presentation. Oh, maybe not.
What did it do?
Upload status.
Interesting. Can you download that? Yeah, try downloading it and check. Apparently, asking it to create a PowerPoint slideshow will now do it. Except it's giving an error message.
Giving me a hard time. Well, I'll have to I'll have to mess around with that more. That's interesting. So I asked it, Lynn, I asked it to make me a series of slides with each question in my quiz on a separate slide. And then it gave me like a link called Writing Clearly and Concisely Tutorial. And I can't open it right now because there's an error, but it's really interesting. And this is with the free version of ChatGPT.
And this is a free version too. So let me try that. So let's say create a PowerPoint slideshow let me get rid of the extra text so I can see what it's typing here. Let's say I should have done this last night, using AI tools to improve equity. Improve should be typed correctly. Equity in classes, in college classes, let's say. And yeah, this is what I've seen it do before. It will generate a bulleted list and some content for each slide. It generates basically an outline, but in your case, you asked it to generate a PPT file.
I just said create slides.
Okay.
Series of slides that say PowerPoint. That's why I thought this was so interesting.
Create this as a .ppt file. Now it says it can't directly do that.
That's interesting.
So sometimes it will disagree with itself and give you, different results. But now actually, let's try it in the paid version of this because I am curious. So let's try create a set of slides on using AI tools to improve equity in college classes. And I'll correct the spelling in a second. No, it's just creating this.
Maybe it was a glitch because I can't open the link.
Yeah. So it thought it could do it, but apparently it doesn't quite have that ability yet. It's giving some great examples though. Let's try to save this as a .ppt file, and let's see if that will work. It may be doing something this
That's what
time.
it did for me. It did that analyzing.
Okay, it seems to be getting stuck, but in the meanwhile, has anyone tried other prompts that gave you some interesting output? There we go. Okay. So now it claims to have generated a set of slides as a PowerPoint file. And I'm going to try downloading it. And this time it worked. And now if we go to those slides, let's see how it does. The paid version is a lot more powerful. It's a whole generation above. These computers, on the other hand, are really slow. And it's only 39.8K, but that seems awfully small for a PowerPoint slideshow. But there it is. They're not the fanciest slides, but, and this is a college restriction. There we go. Okay. So here, yeah, so it generated slides and you can ask it to revise it and so forth as you could with anything else. So that's a really impressive capability. Okay, well, one other thing, and again, if anyone has any examples that they found useful, go on ahead and let us know. But I also put together a document with some additional references on each of the main themes of this. And let me just share that document with you. And let's just open that a little bit. One is I put together a list of some articles on using AI on inclusive course design and redesign. Also some books on inclusive teaching, which could be used as references, and then some podcast episodes on inclusive teaching and using AI to support inclusion. And by the way, the first two listed here are from the authors of the book that we'll be using as one of our reading groups for this fall. And they're very good episodes. And the next two also talk about some interesting ways in which AI tools can be used to support instruction. The first one in particular talks about how AI is being incorporated in some tools, like it's a polling system, the Top Hat platform, where Top Hat is something similar to what we use in terms of iClicker, but it also comes with OER software. It also costs quite a bit more than iClicker, but basically they will provide you with whole courses bundled in their platform. And now they've added an AI tool to many of their courses where it basically is trained not just on the entire web, but on the specific content for courses, allowing students to have personalized tutors that are trained specifically for their course material. So when they query it, they're getting information. They're only getting information based on their courses and not things that the tool found somewhere out on the internet, for example. So it's a really interesting approach, and we're going to be seeing more and more of that. Right now, for example, both Brightspace and iClicker are in beta testing on some new AI implementations within their courses, within their environments, which will use AI to generate questions as well as to summarize student results and so on. And so there's some interesting podcasts there. Some of them go back to the early years of AI, let's say last year. And also I put in, there was only one thing on AI about generating some active learning activities, but the evidence on the use of active learning is overwhelming. This first block of things are studies of meta-analyses of how active learning activities can improve learning. The next set are some books on ways of implementing active learning, some web resources out there, and then also some podcasts on using active learning. There's not as much about AI in there, but it's a nice way of seeing or to getting more information about some of the things that may be recommended. And here's just a few references on ways in which students can use adaptive learning platforms to support their own learning by using basically as a tutoring tool. So, some of that I'm hoping you might find helpful as well. Did anyone else find any interesting applications or try any of these prompts or variations on the prompts? Okay, well, we will stop here. And our next session, we have two guests coming in who will be talking about using AI tools to generate imagery.